Hey everybody, Biohack here. Stage 25 Dungeons drops today in the most recent raid patch. And there's been a lot of discussion about whether or not they're worth it and whether or not you should be farming Stage 25, given how the drop rates work and all that kind of stuff. I've been hearing sort of mixed opinions on this. And so we actually have data mine drop rates. I'm not 100% sure that these are absolutely correct. So just keep that in mind, that everything I'm going to be talking about in this video is assuming these numbers are correct, and they probably are. But if it turns out they aren't, I'll make a new video and we'll go through this whole process again with new rates. So just wanted to get that out of the way right off the bat. But what you're seeing on the screen are the new drop rates that we've data mined for Dungeon 25, as well as 20 through 25. And I'm going to walk through all the math that talks about sort of what sort of energy cost per gear you're looking at, and hopefully give you a good idea of whether or not these dungeons are worth farming. Spoiler alert, I think Dungeon 24 is actually way better than people think. 24 might actually be a better spot to farm than 25. And I think there's no question that farming 25 is generally worth it. 24 or 25 is generally worth it over stage 20. Unless you're like a super whale and you're really concerned about like your gear per time as opposed to your gear per energy. So everything in this video is going to be based, assuming you're a low to free to play spend player who's not, whaling out tons of money, and that your energy efficiency is what you're actually interested in. So let's walk through the numbers and talk about it. Like I said, these are the data mine drop rates. There's a few things to note right off the bat. Our chance of getting 6-star gear has moved from 27% on stage 20 up to 32% on stage 25. And the chance of getting a legendary piece has moved from 7.5% to 13%, epics from 25 to 32%. And then the rares have decreased in proportion to that. What that actually means is a breakdown like this. Let me blow this up for you guys. This is kind of the percentages that you're actually looking at of getting the different pieces. So on stage 20, your chances of getting a 6-star legendary was about 2%. Now on stage 25, it's about 4.14% or 4.2%. So yeah, that gives you some idea. Epics 6.72 previously, now 10.5, and then 24 is like 3.7, 9.41. So this is just a bunch of numbers on a screen. Hopefully you can use it as reference. But what I think is actually important is if we look at how much energy it costs to get different pieces of gear. So I've gone ahead and made a spreadsheet here. Let me blow this up again, if I can do that. Hello, Google? There we go. Okay. So what we have here is essentially a breakdown of how much energy it costs to get different types of gear, given these data mine drop rates. So a few things to note. The first thing I've looked at is essentially non-5-star rare gear. By the time you're in a position where you can actually farm stage 25 dungeons, you're probably no longer using 5-star rare gear. It's pretty much just an auto sell no matter what. I can't really think of any scenarios where you'd be keeping that gear, unless maybe it's just in a certain set. Anyway, moral of the story is pretty much if it's a 5-star rare, you're going to auto sell it. And if it's not a 5-star rare, then there's a potential that it could still be used. So if we're looking at how much energy do we have to spend to get a piece of gear that we might actually be interested in, that's what we have here. So there's on stage 20, there's about a little over 50% chance that we're going to get a piece of gear that we're actually going to use. And what that means is, since it costs 16 energy to run stage 20 dungeons, we're going to spend a little under 32 energy or 2 runs to get a piece of gear that we might be interested in, because at least it's not a 5-star rare piece. If we then look at how that translates into the stage 24 and 25 dungeons, we see that stage 24 actually improves the efficiency of getting a piece that we might actually use. So now we're spending on average about 29.7 energy to get a piece of gear that may potentially be useful. It's not a 5-star rare. But it actually gets worse on stage 25. So we're actually spending slightly more energy to get a piece of gear that might be usable on stage 25 versus stage 24. Okay, that's all well and good, but that's basically heavily weighted towards the whether or not you're getting 5-star or 6-star gear. But there's also the components of rarity, right? And in certain cases, like rarity makes a big difference. For example, if you're farming dragons trying to get speed gear for your speed lead in arena, you really are mostly looking at like epic or legendary pieces because, even a 6-star with a speed roll on speed gear is not going to be useful. You want that 6-star legendary speed gear with the speed substats, right? That's what you're going for. And so if we look at sort of the epic and the rare gear, that's where we really start to see the 24 and 25 dungeons pull way ahead. So if we're looking at a 6-star piece of epic gear on stage 20, we're going to spend about 240 energy, 238, to get a 6-star epic piece. Whereas if we're farming stage 24, we're looking at spending about 191 energy to get a 6-star epic piece. And stage 25, again, stage 25 is actually worse than stage 24 with respect to energy efficiency. We need to spend 196 energy to get a 6-star epic piece farming the stage 25 dungeons. But still, that's a massive increase. If we look at like going from 238 to 196, what sort of numbers are we looking at that? It's like 82% as much energy to get an epic 6-star piece as it is to get a on 25 versus 20. So that's a pretty significant improvement. Even more dramatic improvement comes in the legendary, the 6-star legendary gear. So on stage 21, we would have a 2.1 or 2.01% chance to get a 6-star legendary, which means we need to spend almost 800 energy to get one 6-star legendary piece farming stage 20 dungeons. Now, if we look at the stage 24 and the stage 25, that's reduced dramatically. So stage 24, you're looking at 486 energy to get a 6-star legendary, and stage 85, you're looking at 483 energy to get a 6-star legendary. What's really interesting to me is just how close 24 and 25 are, and like one could make the argument that farming stage 24 might actually be better than farming stage 25. At least, I mean, they're very close. So I found this really interesting because what this means is that if you want to farm stage 24, maybe because you have better champions for the affinity on stage 24 over stage 25, that's a totally viable option. You definitely shouldn't feel bad about that. Remember, stage 24 only costs 18 energy to farm and stage 25 costs 20. So even though the chances are slightly better on stage 25, that energy cost sort of cancels out the slightly better drop rates. So if you want to farm stage 24, nothing wrong with that at all. Go for it. But moral of the story is if you're interested in getting that, God tier 6-star legendary gear, 24 and 25 are way better than stage 20. If we look at what the percentage that looks like, it's, hold on. Oh no, my calculator. Escape. Okay. It's, I guess I could do it over here so you guys can watch. 796, or, hello, mouse. 483.1 divided by 96. It's like 60% the energy cost to get 6-star legendary gear in stage 25 versus stage 20. So definitely I'm going to be farming either stage 24 or stage 25 from here on out, depending on the affinities that I want to run. That's way better for endgame accounts where you really want that 6-star legendary gear. It's absolutely better to farm stage 24 and stage 25. Don't let the naysayers tell you that these dungeons are not worth it or that it's, it doesn't make a difference and the drop rates aren't that important. A 5% increase in drop rate is a lot depending on what that rate is coming from, right? If we're increasing a 25 to 30%, that's a huge difference. If you're increasing a 1% to 6%, now you're getting way more stuff. So a 5% increase in drop rate can be very, very meaningful. Anyway, there's one exception to all of this, though, and that is what happens if you're on a Dungeon Divers event where you're actually worried about how many points you're getting for the event with respect to how much energy you're spending. So I made another spreadsheet on this that shows the breakdown of how many points you get for the Dungeon Divers relative to how much energy you have to spend to get those points. And unfortunately, it doesn't look that great for the stage 25 dungeons. So what we have here is just like a kind of component breakdown, all the different pieces, how many points you get. I'm not sure if this changes from event to event. This is how many points you get for the events that are going on right now. And then you can essentially figure out for each run, how many points does each one of these things contribute based on the percentage of it actually dropping? What's the total amount of points you get? And then you just divide the total amount of points by the amount of energy, and you get how much energy you need to spend to get 1 point farming these different dungeons. And what we actually see is that stage 20 is much, much better than stage 25. You'll get 7.76 points per energy you spend on stage 20 versus 0.64 on stage 25. So that's about a 15% drop in efficiency. Stage 24, though, is only about a 7% drop. It's about halfway in between these two. And I think that's really interesting because, as we saw in the other spreadsheet, you don't really give up very much, if anything, for farming stage 24 versus stage 25. So if you're on a Dungeon Divers event, you might want to just actually prefer to farm stage 24 over 25 to get the extra Dungeon Diver points while still getting, the best possible gear to energy ratio you can. So anyway, I hope you guys found this helpful. I haven't seen anyone like actually sitting down and doing all the math on this stuff. And I've been hearing people say all sorts of crazy things. Some people say these drop rates are good. Some say these drop rates are bad. But here's actual math to back it up. And I think unquestionably, if you're looking at getting 6-star legendary gear, it's just so much better to farm these 24 and 25 dungeons. So I hope you find this helpful. If you like this kind of content, please come subscribe to my Twitch channel. I stream pretty much every day. Link is in the description. And I will see you all in the next video. Cheers.